the baseline of what I need to deliver on the housing front in Redbridge is the council's council housing programme. There's an HRA programme with 600 homes in development. We've got 150 odd on site at the moment. And then there's a very ambitious programme of general funded mixed tenure development. So we're doing another 600 homes across a range of sites, which will be some affordable and some for sale, which is it's a big step for a council like Redbridge to move into the for sale market. So those are the two kind of bedrocks of delivery that need to happen, and obviously a lot of expenditure going into that. But those aren't my top three things. So I'm cheating. The first one is Ilford Town Centre, particularly the Western Gateway scheme, which is a proposed joint venture development in the centre of Ilford. This is linked to moving part of the gyratory system around Ilford, so moving the Western gyratory as it's known, and creating a new opportunity around the new Elizabeth Line station at Ilford. So this is new homes, this is new business opportunity, this is new public realm space. If you've spent time in Ilford Town Centre, you'll know there isn't in the centre of town much in the way of green space. So this is really bringing that opportunity into play, which is really important for local people. There's also a whole civic and cultural quarter in the town centre that we're wanting to develop around the town hall and assets in that area. So that was number one. Number two is our community hubs programme. So this is all about integrating service delivery at the front line across a range of council and partner services, and it's about being community led. So this is where we're designing with community groups, with community panels, a series of community hubs that will be in walking distance, so that kind of 15-20 minute distance from anywhere in the borough where people live. This will involve a library, health facilities, in many of them small business, startup facilities, and a range of other community facilities and services. And it's not just about the buildings, obviously it's about how people work together, how the community is involved in managing those facilities, in making best use of them, and how all the different council and health partner services are involved in delivering that. So that's a really exciting programme, which again, those community hubs are linked in to the housing development side of things, because we're taking the opportunity to build a hub on the ground or first two floors, and then building homes above and on the wider site where there's a bigger footprint. So that's number two. Number three, which is really important, is the leisure offer, expanding the leisure offer and the cultural offer in the borough. So this job is regeneration and culture, and there's a very, very clear linkage there between growth in terms of town centres and economy, and what Redbridge has in so vast amounts, which is green space and brilliant leisure space. So we've got the Hainault Forest, which is right on the edge of the borough, heading out into Essex. We've got the Fairlock Waters, which is a big kind of country park on the edge of the borough. We've got a development in Wanstead of a new swimming pool as part of a refurbishment of the leisure centre there, linked to the local school. And in Valentine's Park, we're going to build a new Lido. The old Valentine's Lido was demolished in, I think, 1995, 1996, something like that. And the leader of the council has made a strong commitment to bring back the Lido. So there some really exciting projects, and there's a few more that are just twinkles in the eye at the moment, which I won't announce today. There's a few more leisure-based things that we're exploring as well.
Fantastic, thanks, Mark. That's an exciting programme. I just sort of referring back to your history in local government. How much is the Redbridge Build programme itself? How much of that was on the table when you came to the job, and how much of it is the result of you taking the job?
You see, I've only been there 4 months, so I really can't take credit for very much of this at all. I think there's been a huge amount of planning going on over the years to put this programme together. So I think I was brought in to really drive delivery of this program. And as I say, there are a few twinkles in the eye, things that are bubbling under, where I'm certainly bringing in thinking and influence to build on what's already an ambitious program. And there is a risk with something like this to aim too high and try and do too much. So I've got quite enough to be getting on with, but there's definitely things that I want to add to the mix.
And how much will modern methods of construction play a role in the development program going forward, given what you and maybe you want to expand a little bit on what you did with Place?
Sure. So for those who don't know, Place stands for the Pan-London Accommodation Collaborative Enterprise, which is a bit of a mouthful, but it's basically a group of boroughs working together to deliver modular housing for temporary accommodation for homeless families. And the distinct thing about it is that those homes were designed so they can be moved from site to site. So if the home has a 40-year lifespan and it's moved 5 times, 8 years on each site, actually that's 4 times, isn't it? But yeah, you know what I mean. That's the concept. Yeah, so I mean, I was really excited to be part of setting that up and the procurement process to select that product, which I think was a really great process of partnership between boroughs and the GLA who were involved throughout and funding that. And as I say, it was a very specific product for a very specific purpose, but I think it also had every reason to be available for other uses as well. Just because we designed it so you could move it doesn't mean you couldn't leave it permanently. And at some point, those units will have a permanent home. I'm sure of that, because they're designed to last. So I think bringing that thinking into the way Redbridge will be delivering its housing program is absolutely in my head. I can't say at this point that I've suddenly turned the whole program upside down to make that happen. I think that's something that needs very careful review and thought. And some of the schemes obviously are on site. Some of them are at a very far advanced design stage, and it wouldn't be right. It wouldn't be cost effective to revise those at this point. But just bringing that thinking and that awareness and that openness to those ways of working is absolutely critical, I think. And if you look at what's happening with the funding from government through the GLA, through Homes England, it's all pointing in that direction. So it's absolutely something we need to be working on.
There's lots of threads in what you've said that I'm going to pick up later, but just to wrap this section up, I wonder that combination of on your wish list reflected the job title, Regeneration and Culture. How much of a leap is that for you, given that your focus on housing in your previous career?
Yeah, I mean, it really is a stretch for me into the whole area of libraries, leisure, culture. I've worked with colleagues in boroughs over the years in those areas, but I've never run those services. I've never led on those. And yeah, so I mean, for me, that was part of the attraction of the job, was to have that stretch beyond my roots in housing and regeneration, which is much more familiar and comfortable territory, and just the idea that rather than housing-led regeneration, which was often the model in other places, this was much more about that balancing act between all of the wider environmental and leisure aspects with economic growth, particularly on a spatial dimension, where if you look at the borough of Redbridge, those of you who aren't familiar with it, the south of the borough along what we might call the Crossrail corridor, you can see that's where there's already the more urban environment and scope for further intensification of development. And then if you go to the north of the borough, you've got much more of the green belt, the leisure space and so on. So how do we work with the local people, the local community, to integrate those two different aspects so that the borough feels like a place for everybody in all its aspects, so that people living in those new homes built next to Ilford Station are also engaged with the leisure opportunities in Fairlark, in Hainault and so on. So that, to me, that's part of the most exciting part of the job, is the kind of behaviour change and outlook aspect of it.
This is internal behavioural change as well for the council itself. And you're talking about the community hubs, for example. That's real cross-departmental thinking. How easy has it been for the council to adapt and evolve in that way to to work with you on those hubs?
So, I mean, there's a program team for the hubs who are really leading that work. I'm not going to take any credit for that. They've been working over the last 2-3 years really to bring that way of working and that way of thinking into the council. And yeah, I mean, in any local authority, I think it's a challenge to get that way of working really embedded. And so it's still a work in progress. I think we're still getting to grips with that, but it is having an impact across the council. You know, for example, in the planning service. So the planning team just won a MJ award, best service of the year. So not just best planning team, but best council service of the year, which is pretty amazing. Again, I'm not taking any credit for that. It's nice to walk into an awards ceremony without having had to do it. But yeah, I mean, that is all about how the planning team engage with the community. They call it planning for everyone. And, you know, it's fantastic to see how, for example, using Neighbourhood SIL to do crowdfunding of local community projects that are, you know, obviously linked to local development is really exciting stuff.